June 7, 1944. Normandy, dawn. Field Marshal Gerd von Rundstedt, Commander-in-Chief of German forces in the West, received a frantic report from his staff. The Allies had landed not just men, not just tanks, but fuel, barrels, pipelines, tankers, already flowing onto the beaches. At first, he dismissed it as exaggeration. An invasion fleet might bring soldiers, certainly, and perhaps a few days of rations. But fuel? That was impossible. The Wehrmacht itself struggled to keep its divisions supplied even inside Germany. Yet as the hours passed, reports confirmed the impossible. American engineers were unloading gasoline by the thousands of tons, moving it inland in convoys of trucks, bulldozing depots, and laying the groundwork for pipelines under the very ocean. Rundstedt muttered bitterly, "They fight with oil as if it were water." To the Germans, logistics was always the weak point of mechanized warfare. Blitzkrieg had succeeded in Poland and France by gambling on short campaigns. But in Russia, the gamble failed. Fuel shortages crippled panzers, ammunition failed to arrive, trucks froze in the mud. German commanders believed the Allies would face the same limits in France. They expected the beaches to choke with wreckage, supplies to pile uselessly on sand, armies to stall within days. What they encountered instead was a miracle of organization, America's mastery of fuel and supply. The statistics from D-Day are staggering. On June 6th alone, the Allies landed 156,000 troops. Within 5 days, 500,000 were ashore. By July, 1 million. Each division required 700 tons of supplies per day: food, ammunition, medicine, and, above all, fuel. The Americans consumed more gasoline than any army in history. Patton's Third Army alone used 400,000 gallons per day in August 1944. German generals, who often rationed their tanks to a handful of gallons, were stunned to watch American convoys roaring day and night, seemingly endless rivers of trucks delivering fuel. The secret lay in preparation. Months before D-Day, engineers had designed the Mulberry harbors, portable ports assembled from concrete caissons, floating roads, and sunken ships. By June 9th, Mulberry A at Omaha Beach and Mulberry B at Arromanches were unloading thousands of tons daily. Even when a storm destroyed Mulberry A, the Americans barely faltered. Supplies came ashore directly across beaches, driven inland by amphibious DUKWs and trucks. German intelligence had not considered the possibility of portable harbors. They had assumed the Allies needed Cherbourg, Le Havre, or Calais. Instead, the Allies built ports out of the sea itself. One lesser-known fact: fuel was not only brought ashore in drums, but piped through flexible hoses from tankers offshore. Known as Operation Tombola, this early system allowed gasoline to flow directly from ship to shore without unloading barrels. Later, the Allies extended this idea into PLUTO, pipeline under the ocean. Beginning in August 1944, cables laid across the channel pumped millions of gallons of fuel from England to depots in France. By war's end, PLUTO had delivered over 172 million gallons. German generals, who relied on vulnerable rail lines constantly bombed by Allied aircraft, were speechless. The Red Ball Express completed the picture. Launched in August 1944, this convoy system employed 6,000 trucks, 75% of them driven by African-American soldiers in segregated units. Each truck carried 212 tons, running day and night on dedicated routes. Convoys stretched 60 miles, headlights blacked out, engines roaring through dust and rain. In just 3 months, the Red Ball delivered 412,000 tons of supplies, enough to keep Patton, Bradley, and Montgomery advancing across France. German commanders, still relying on horses for 80% of their transport, could not comprehend such efficiency. One officer remarked bitterly, "They fight with roads, we fight with carts." fuel dumps revealed the scale. At St. Lo, American engineers built a supply area nicknamed the City of Canvas. It stretched 25 square miles, with barrels stacked higher than houses, crates piled into avenues, and trucks weaving like ants. German reconnaissance pilots mistook it for a city until closer photos revealed the truth. "Their warehouses are larger than our towns," one Luftwaffe officer reported. German artillery, short on shells, could do nothing to disrupt it. The psychological shock hit soldiers in the field. Captured Americans boasted of eating fresh meat, drinking coffee, and smoking cigarettes daily. A single K ration contained more calories than some German infantrymen received in 2 days. German soldiers, often hungry, could scarcely believe it. One POW confessed, "Your army is fed like kings. We cannot fight such wealth." Another overlooked fact: even ice cream reached the front. The U.S. Navy built floating ice cream barges in the Pacific and shipped freezer units to Europe. Soldiers in Normandy ate sundaes after battle. For Germans, rationed to watery soup and black bread, this was incomprehensible. Logistics was not just strength, it was morale. The contrast grew as the campaign continued. At the Falaise Pocket, German divisions attempted breakout but ran out of fuel, abandoning hundreds of tanks and vehicles. Meanwhile, American armor surged forward, fueled by convoys that never ceased. At the Seine, captured officers admitted defeat, not from lack of courage, but lack of gasoline. General Bayerlein of Panzer Lehr confessed, "We had the men, we had the weapons. We did not have fuel. The Americans had oceans of it." The speed of Allied logistics was equally stunning. After the breakout from Normandy, Patton's Third Army advanced 60 miles per day, a pace unheard of in modern war. German officers expected him to stall. Instead, supply trucks raced ahead, delivering fuel faster than tanks consumed it. Even when Patton temporarily halted at the Moselle due to shortages, the pause lasted days, not weeks. German forces, accustomed to waiting months for resupply, were astonished. Another little-known dimension: Allied engineers repaired French railways within days of capture, restoring bridges, clearing mines, and running trains. German staff officers touring captured depots after the war admitted disbelief. "Their engineers are an army in themselves," one said. By late 1944, the imbalance was undeniable. During the Battle of the Bulge, Hitler gambled on surprise, hoping the Allies had overextended their supply lines. At first, fog and snow slowed American air cover, but when skies cleared, Allied convoys resumed. Fuel shortages crippled the German offensive. Tanks ran dry, abandoned in forests. Meanwhile, American supply columns pushed forward even under fire. The gamble collapsed. Rundstedt himself admitted afterward, "It was not their tanks or planes. It was their supply. We could not cut it. We could not match it." The mathematics is merciless. By 1945, the U.S. Army in Europe consumed 1.3 million gallons of fuel per day. German production, bombed and blockaded, barely managed 1/3 that amount for all fronts. The Americans built more fuel depots than Germany built tanks. When Allied troops crossed the Rhine, they brought not only bridges, but pipelines. German commanders, watching their armies retreat on foot, saw American armor fueled and ready. It was a war of motion, and logistics made motion possible. For German officers, raised on the myth of decisive battle, this was the bitterest lesson. They had believed superior tactics and weapons would triumph. But tactics meant nothing without fuel. At Normandy, they fired shells sparingly, while Americans unleashed thousands daily. They moved tanks by horse-drawn trailers, while Americans hauled them by convoys. They rationed gasoline like gold, while Americans poured it into jeeps, trucks, even ice cream machines. After the war, captured generals admitted their astonishment. Von Rundstedt, they waged war as if their supply were infinite. For us, every liter was life or death. For them, it was abundance without end. Albert Speer, Hitler's armaments minister, testified at Nuremberg, "We underestimated not only their factories, but their organization. They fought with mathematics and oil. That was decisive." In hindsight, the German failure was not courage, but logistics. They had no answer to Mulberry harbors, to PLUTO pipelines, to the Red Ball Express. They expected a battle, but they faced a machine. On June 7th, when Rundstedt received those first reports of fuel flowing ashore, he refused to believe. Yet by the end of summer, as his armies starved for gasoline while Americans surged across France, he knew the truth. The Allies had brought not just soldiers, but an economy. They had brought the factories of Detroit, the oil of Texas, the trucks of Ohio, the pipelines of England. They had brought logistics on a scale that turned battle into arithmetic. And once that arithmetic began, Germany was already defeated.